Hey everybody, my name is Kara Brown. I'm an urban fantasy author, the author of Queens and Swords and Silence. I'm really cold right now. Winter is upon us here in Arizona, and for those of you who actually are dealing with snow, you're probably going to tell me it's Tofu, and rightfully so, but it is cold, but we're not here to talk about me being cold, we're actually here to talk about characters. So I did a poll on Twitter, and I said, do you guys want me to talk about how to create engaging characters, or do you want me to talk about how to create series Bibles? And the poll came back with how to create characters, so that's what we're going to talk about. If you want to get in on this kind of poll action again, all you have to do is just follow me on Twitter. I post these polls up on Sunday. You can cast your vote, tell me what videos that you want in the coming week, and we can move on from there. Main characters. I freaking love them and I goddamn hate them. So this video is actually coming at a really good time for me because anytime I try to do something that's nano related, I suddenly have another project that kind of comes and does like a little jig in front of me. It's like, hey, I bet you want to work on me, don't you? And I'm like, I can't, I gotta do this project, and it keeps doing a little dance. So I say that because literally yesterday, while I was running around and doing all the things that I had to do, one of the story ideas popped into my head, and I was like, oh my god, I would love to do that, I just can't do it right now. So I'm actually going to use this video as a means to kind of show you some of the things that I go through too when I'm trying to flesh out and create a character, so that way you have an example, it's not just me sitting here and telling you things. So I don't have a name for this character yet, so for the purposes of this video, we're going to refer to this character I'm developing as Kiddo. Now, when you make a character, you have to make a character that your reader can relate to. We're talking about somebody that can be like, oh, I could probably have a drink with that person, or I could see myself sitting next to that person. It has to be somebody or something that your reader can feel some kind of attachment to. And the reason I'm saying that is because people, when they attach themselves to characters, are more attached to your story. Now, you can write one of the most fantastic plots in all the lands, but if you have dull, meaningless, agentless characters, it doesn't really matter. Now, when I'm talking about characters that basically aren't engaging at all, I'm saying like they don't have a personality, they don't have any agency, they don't have goals, they don't have wants. These guys don't even have hobbies. Like, their main purpose in the story is to save the world. I mean, like, what were you doing before this happened? So, you know, take this time to kind of think about what are some things, some daily things that an average reader might be able to relate to. Is it like having to be paying the bills, finding a job, family problems? Are they self-conscious about their looks? Do they deal with anxiety? You know, just think about something that makes your character relatable to everybody else and see how you can work that more into your story. Now, Kiddo is a very interesting character because this is actually a goddess. I'm writing a story about a goddess. And this goddess is very embarrassed by her family because in all the pantheons out there, she comes from the Jerry Springer pantheon. Like, anything that can happen on Jerry Springer pretty much happens in her pantheon, and she's super embarrassed about it. Not to mention, she also lives in the shadow of her parents. Everybody talks about her parents, they forget that she's a thing. So she's got a little bit of a complex going on there. And then on top of that, what else did I write? She doesn't have an element that she's a goddess of. Everybody has something that they're in charge of, whether it be love, the hunt, war, whatever. She ain't got nothing. So she's wandering around with no purpose, no nothing, and she's miserable. Now, while we are talking about a deity in this case, we can, I'd like to think, relate to the fact that we have embarrassing family members and that we struggle to figure out what we're going to be doing with our lives and just trying to find ourselves. Now, if you go through a bunch of book reviews, you are going to see the repeated phrase of, this is not a likable character. And a lot of people, when they are following a main character, want it to be somebody that they do like, they do relate to, and that they are intrigued by. So when you have a character who continuously throughout the entire story is unlikable, you have a problem. And I do want to go over some things that can make them likable, but before I dive into that, I do want to kind of tap onto that just a little bit more. You can have a character that's unlikable in the beginning if they become likable throughout the story. You know, they get some life lessons, they learn some things, they change their ways, kind of thing. That's common in mythology, very frequent in folk tales. In fact, one of my favorite animes, The 12 Kingdoms, I'll put a picture right here of it, has a character in the very beginning that I can't stand, and it's the main character. Yoko, in the beginning of this series, is a character that I can do without. But by the time I hit episode 4, I actually start to like this character because she is developing, she is learning things, she's becoming more self-confident. And by the time we get to like episode, I think it's like 17, I'm like, I'm rooting for this bitch. Like, go girl. So what I'm really trying to say with that is you can have an unlikable character in the beginning if they are able to figure their shit out by the end of the book. Now, there's some big things that you can do to make a likable character. Obviously, doing the right thing is the number one thing that people like to see when it comes to a good character. You know, when they're given the choice picking between a greedy thing or doing a virtuous thing, they always like the character to try to do the virtuous thing or have like a mighty inner debate about if they should or shouldn't do it, but still pick the virtuous thing. But there's a lot of different other things that you can do that can kind of showcase this person's likability, and a lot of it involves very small, minute things that you scatter throughout the story, such as helping somebody, the way that they talk to people, their rationality. One of the easiest things that you can honestly do to make characters likable is to give them some kind of hobby that they have that isn't related to the plot. As intriguing as it is to follow some badass bitch trying to save the world and that her hobby happens to be sword collecting, cliche, maybe find something else. Maybe make it gardening, maybe make it crochet, just something like that. And some of you may be asking what makes that a likable character, but people got hobbies, right? We all have hobbies. We all do things that we like to do in our free time, and seeing that a character has that too does warm us up to them just a little bit more. Giving your character faults and showing that they are not perfect is actually going to make them likable as well, because if there's one thing that a lot of people can relate to more than anything else is sharing faults. That's like our big thing. It's like a weird camaraderie. In my book, Queen of Swords and Silence, Ghost has many faults. In fact, I think she's got more faults than virtues at this point. But two of her big main faults that she has is she's got a drinking problem. She knows it, she ignores it. And then the other one is that she runs her mouth off at probably the worst possible time ever. Now, at the time that I'm writing this, I'm still trying to figure out what Kiddo's faults are going to be. Again, the story idea just came to me yesterday, cut me a little bit slack, just a little tiny bit. But so far she's got two main faults in that she's too strong, as in she can't touch anything without breaking it because she hasn't learned how to control her strength in the mortal realm, so lots of shit keeps breaking and that's a lot of bills she has to keep paying. And then the other thing has to do with her actual blood. So she's a deity, she's got golden blood thing going on, and because she's got that, there are things that want that blood, so she's got to kind of fend for her life at the same time. Did I mention she got kicked out of her pantheon? That happened too. Now, at the time that I am recording this video, I only have two likable traits for Kiddo at this point in time. The first one is that Kiddo has to deal with social anxiety because Kiddo has never actually been out in the mortal realm before, where there are hundreds on thousands of people in any given place at any one time, and that's really overwhelming for her. So she's dealing with a lot of social anxiety, a lot of overstimuli, and just trying to cope with that. So in that way, I was kind of trying to relate that to just basically having a general social anxiety disorder. Now, on the flip side, Kiddo does like to help people. Kiddo likes to, help old ladies get across the street, likes to give food to homeless people, likes to just do what in their heart they think is the right thing. Now, this is a likable trait. I'd like to think that we all like to try and do nice things for other people, but that's just me. And I'm trying to figure out how to use that to bite her in the ass, even though I really don't want to send the wrong message that helping people has a negative consequence. I mean, it's just something I have to think a little bit more on. Again, story came to me yesterday. Obviously, when it comes to working on making your character likable, you do want to avoid making them an asshole. You want to avoid making them too crass, and you definitely want to do everything that you can to keep them from being perfect. Everything that they do should have some kind of consequence, and you've got a story where if somebody's mean to them, like something times 20 bad happens to the person that did the thing, then you have a Mary Sue. I hate saying that, but it's true. There are so many stories that I have read both in submissions and at writing group where somebody's got a character and it's okay at first, but then there's a tiny slight and then it's a hot mess. Just please don't make a Mary Gary Sue, please. One thing that I will add is that your character should be about as complex as people are, and people are complex for a lot of reasons. I think it's really too easy for us to look at individuals and just make a quick judgment about why they are the way they are without thinking too much into it. And again, maybe this is me coming from a psychology background, but a lot of times the way that a person is now is because of something that has happened to them over time, whether it be from their childhood or a recent experience, something. People are not born assholes. They are not just born afraid. Things happen to make them that way. So, when you're making your character, and again, dive as deep into this as you want, but consider the things that happened to them while growing up that shape their mentality and their attitude towards things today. Alright, so let's talk about character descriptions. A lot of times when I meet new writers, I see two different kinds of descriptions. We have the I'm a plain Mary Jane, but I'm a stunning woman that everybody wants description. It's always really weird when I read somebody's story and they've got a character that says that they're a plain Jane, but then they go on to talk about how they have stunning blue eyes and luscious brown locks and their flawless skin and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you want us to think that your character's attractive, but you don't want us to see that your character is vain about their appearance. So when you say that they're plain, but then you describe them this way, you're kind of doing the opposite. Now, how your character thinks about themselves is going to really come down to their mentality, and it's going to come down to the genre as well. Obviously, when you're working with romance novels and stuff like that, you are going to have more poetic descriptions of a person's appearance in there. But, in some other ones, you're not so much, And again, I don't think every character looks at themselves in the mirror, and please stop doing that trope in the first chapter. and starts talking about how beautiful their hair is. I know I woke up this morning and I was looking at my hair and I was like, oh no, the dye's coming out here. I'm gonna have to redo it soon. Now, on the other spectrum of that, you have the characters with way too many unique features. Like, they walked out of a freaking anime. You know, you got them with like the vibrant colored hair, the 2 different colored eyes. They've got some special family tattoo that they were born with. Like, pick one. Just pick one thing, please. Just pick one. Just pick one unique feature, please. Don't go overboard. Like, I get it. You want to show that your character's cool and they've got a lot of things that make them stand out. But at the same time, like, what stops people from gawking at them? Because, I mean, we're going back. Like, if they've got the vibrant hair and the 2 colored eyes and the tattoos, I'm expecting people to stop them in the street and ask what anime they're cosplaying for, because it gets that ridiculous. Granted, I keep feeling like I'm having exceptions to all these things I'm saying. If you do have a setting in which having a very over-the-top appearance is normal, then that just needs to be something that's established in the beginning. A really good example is actually one of my friends who's writing a story, and he's writing a story about a guy and, you know, kind of like how he's trying to get his life together, and he does this escapism into an immersive MMO. And so when he's in the MMO, obviously all those appearances are definitely over the top because it's an MMO. So depends on your genre, depends on how you set it up. If you set it up and you make the scene like legit, so that way we know that this is the typical thing that happens, then it's fine. But if you're talking about like contemporary fiction and this guy shows up and he's got all this bizarre shit, besides knowing that he's going to either be the love interest or one of the main characters, I also know that somebody likes to watch too much anime. I have not figured out Kiddo's appearance outside of that she's going to be a black character I'm back and forth because I want to give her C4 hair, but I don't know enough about C4 hair. Anyway, I don't know that she's black. That's like it so far. And one thing that I want to point out, I don't know if you caught that where I said I don't know enough about C4 hair. If you're going to write a character that is of a different background than you and you don't know anything about it, please take the time to make sure that you are doing it right. There is nothing like writing a different ethnicity and doing it wrong to make you look like an asshole as an author. Now, something else that I would like to point out, and we're getting into the Caro pet peeves at this point, when it comes to creating your characters, is the different ways to show your character and not tell. I die every time I'm in a first-person POV and a scene breaks because a character has to talk about why something is terrifying them the way it is. Now, I don't know about you guys, but anytime I see something that like literally scares the shit out of me, I don't stop and go like, oh my god, it's that thing from my childhood, the thing that terrified me, the thing that is in front of me right now. It sends all these poetic things, blah, 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 through my veins, and now I don't know what to do except stand rooted in the spot. No, what really happens is I go, find ways in your character's monologue to show that they're afraid of things without having to break into exposition. Now, I do like exposition at appropriate times, but when you're talking about really tense conflict scenes or fright scenes or anything that involves the heart pumping, with the exception of the romance scenes, because that's all about inner monologue there, just cut it down just a little tiny bit. I'd also encourage you as a writer to talk more in regards to sensory, to show reactions to things. And the word choice that people use too when they're encountering different people is going to convey a lot more. You know, there's one thing where you talk about how you don't like Bob, who you share an office cubicle with, but it's another when you can, you know, talk about how the face is heating up and you feel like the jaw tightening while you look at Bob while he's touching one of your paper clips. In my opinion, it's a lot more engaging as a reader. I know that's not everybody's jam, but again, we are in the Caro nitpicking part of creating characters, so that's my opinion. Now, something else that I would like to point out before I move into the last topic involving creating a character and moving into the character development part has to do with, does your character's actions make sense? Now, obviously your story has a plot, right? There's a plot. Your characters need to do things in this plot in order for it to follow whatever it is that it needs to do. But there are a lot of times when you are going to sacrifice a character's agency for the sake of the plot, and nothing is more jarring for a reader than to see that the character is behaving in a way that they haven't been behaving at all throughout the entire book. So while I'm not trying to grill you about your character's motivation and the reason behind their actions, all I really want to do is to just encourage you that when you have your character do something, just kind of take a moment to be like, does this make sense with their motives? Is this something that they would actually do? And ask yourself the honest question, am I making them do this for the sake of my plot? It's not me that you have to worry about, it's the book reviews, because they kind of call you out on that. So we're moving into the character arc of creating your characters, and I've done a lot of different videos talking about this topic. That's why I've kind of saved it for last, because I wanted to give you guys the newer stuff stuff instead of talking about the same thing that I find myself always talking about, even at writing group and even at conferences and just all the time, because character development. How does your character change from the start to the end of the book? Come on. How did they change? Tell me right now. Nothing is going to piss a reader off more than having a story with a character that has no character development. Your character has to change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story in some shape or capacity. And when I say change, I'm not talking about like they got into a relationship or they made money. I'm talking about like they had to develop as an individual on an emotional and a personality level. You know, were they people who were usually like a lone wolf and didn't trust people and learned about the power of friendship? Or did they learn that it's okay to push their ego aside for the sake of others? You know, just anything. You have to give them some kind of lesson, please. I'm gonna put it up here somewhere. But this is the book that I constantly talk about. Oh wait, I have that right here. This book right here. For the people who have been here and watching a lot of my videos for a little while, you know that I hold this book up pretty religiously. Of all the books that I have about writing and character development and creating character arcs, this is my #1 favorite. I absolutely love it. What I really like about it is it goes over the different character arcs. It has a bunch of different examples and it dives into a whole bunch of details. Like, she really knocked this out of the park. I could not love this more. But what I'm really trying to tell you is that your character needs to have a character arc. They need to have a struggle. They need to have conflict. And they need to change over the course of the story. If they don't change at all, then again, it's not me that you have to worry about. It's the book reviews that come in. Now, I threw a lot of information at you, and again, a lot of it is my opinion. These are things that I think are important when it comes to character development, but that doesn't mean that they are the only important things. Just like outlining the process in which you create a character, it can be very different from one person to another. And so my question for you, viewer, is what is the #1 thing that you have to take into account when you are creating your characters? Now, this brings us to the end of the video. I have a few quick housekeeping things real quick to go over. First off, if you are new to the channel, thank you for coming and listening up to me at this point. If you like my content, feel free to hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. If you want to check my credentials and know if I know what I'm talking about, a little further down in the video description, you are going to find a link to my newsletter. When you do that, you will get access to a free short story, which will allow you to see my writing style, my descriptions, all that. Basically see if I know what I'm talking about. And if you like it, that's awesome. You can leave a review for it or not. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you don't like it, fair enough. I understand. Different strokes, different folks. You can unsubscribe from the newsletter and I'll just, I'll get over it. But please do your due diligence. I will never fault you for doing that. And talking about newsletters, the newsletter did come out yesterday, so please feel free to jump into your folders and see where it went to. Unfortunately, I can never tell where this thing is going to go because the email filters are always changing. So just check it out. Maybe check the spam folder, make sure it's in there. New short story is in there for your viewing pleasure, and I'm very curious to know what your guys' thoughts on it. So just, I'll just sit here and I'll wait forever. But yeah, so we are pretty much done. Thank you so much for watching until this point. I hope you had a good time. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and I will talk to y'all again real soon.